It's 6 o'clock Tuesday, May 28th for the city council meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. If you'd all like to join me and stand for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. We ask for wisdom and integrity to guide our decision-making tonight, and we also give thanks to all those who work to make our home such a wonderful city. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Nicole, roll call.
Sure. Councilmember Campson? Here. Councilmember Anderson? Here. Councilmember Ward?
Here.
Councilmember Pierce?
Here.
Councilmember Goshen?
Here.
Councilmember Myers? Here. Councilmember Hahn?
Here.
Councilmember Carroll? Here. Mayor Pounds? You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Citizens' comments is first on the agenda.
Mr. Klaus?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
It's on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Salut, bonjour, greetings. My name is Al Klaus, 3 Grand Pavilion. Since April the 13th of 22, this is our 31st City Council presentation regarding noise ordinance, and nuisance. Our issue started in March of 21 when the Sweetgrass Inn commenced operations. Everyone has a story regarding noise. Mrs. Anderson's story. A garage band which played 2 consecutive weekends in close proximity to her residence. The second performance was interrupted by the IOP police. The residential owners were fined. Noise of a short duration. Mr. Hahn explained what he hears from the Citadel. What Mr. Hahn unintentionally did not reveal is the Citadel's property line is 328 feet from his property line. In contrast, Mrs. Williamson's property is directly adjacent to the Sweetgrass Inn. Klaus's property is 35 feet from the Sweetgrass Inn. Both are in the direct line of fire. Not long ago, Mr. Ward commented to council in these very chambers, quote, "The people on 57th Avenue need help," unquote, regarding the noise which emanates from the Sweetgrass Inn. Respectfully, Mr. Ward, they still do. We have provided you numerous emails and videos, the New York Times article, our analysis of a faulty noise study conducted by the resort, requested noise abatement, sound abatement. We provided you an array of factual data which totally dispelled the consistent dehumanizing campaign by the Dart Low enterprise which cast aspersions on our character. Enforcement. In 2023, 45 incidents at the Sweetgrass Inn resulted in 2 citations, one which was not prosecuted by the police. So rounding up, 3%. Clearly, this does not reconcile with the videos we provided. Officer discretion, parameters need to be established. In the proposed ordinance, C maximum decibel levels are not in alignment with the whereases regarding 57th Avenue and the PDD property owners. WCA voting rights perspective, Dart Low 20%. How can we ignore the remaining 80%? Furthermore, we have consistently requested ad nauseum the nuisance verbiage in section 925I12 be reinstated into a proposed noise ordinance. It is not there. What is the reason? In conclusion, we respectfully request no carve out in the PDD. Maximum decibels of 60 dBAs for all. Respectfully, vote no regarding the proposed noise ordinance. Thank you.
Julie Nessler?
Before I start, I just want to, just for sake of timing, everything that I'm going to speak about is not my personal feelings. I have all the literature backed up, which I'll email you because I have tons of information on newspaper articles, different information from different stations, whatnot. But what I want to talk about is I'm going to request, I would like to see impact change in the first responder field. It's about being proactive, and it's about the safety of our community. For years, I have been an advocate for first responders. I have come up here asking for national standards, 1710, to be implemented. I have donated a life ring for the dock because I want our visitors and residents, my neighbors, to be safe. When Chief Cornett came on board, he used to, and maybe he still does, but he would do reports for the residents at the rec center. I would go to that because I wanted to know where the guns were, right? I wanted to know what areas were not safe to where I could take my dog. So having said that, I am passionate about what I'm speaking about. I took it one step further and I went on ride-along. And it was enlightening, it was sad, it was, what I learned was so valuable, but I couldn't help but leave thinking that what our police officers do for the low amount of income they make is just morally wrong. I would love for all of you to go either take a ride along on a weekend with our police officers and see what they truly do, what the community really doesn't know about, as well as go to the firehouse and stay for 4 days and understand the calls that they go on day and night. Being proactive, real quick. Article in the Post and Courier. If you make $58,000 a year, you're low income. Anything below that, you're at the poverty line. James Island Firehouse currently is begging for their community support because they're in a Mayday situation. They have no one to work. First responders cannot afford to keep their jobs, especially not when you have the condos where they're paying $18 an hour just to monitor and secure the parking lot. You have all these other areas. People are going back to their families at night, not working an extra. The fire does is 920 hours a year extra compared to the 40-hour week, 9-to-5 job that most people work.
Ms. Nessel, I need you to wrap your comments up, please.
Okay, yes, I will. Don't take my word for it. Charleston County has a structure implemented. They have a series of 6 different scenarios, maybe 7, of how it wouldn't cost our city a dime, how they can restructure the program and the working days, speaking specifically for fire department, that would increase their pay that wouldn't cost our city a dime. We cannot afford not to have public first responders not on our island protecting us. And it's coming to the point where they can't afford to keep these jobs. So, impact change. You can do it. We can do it. Thank you.
Terry Hack.
Good evening, and my name is Terry Hack, and I'm representing the owners of Wild Dunes Resort, Low and Dart, and the resort operator Hyatt. Thank you for your continued efforts on trying to find an acceptable noise ordinance for everyone in this community. The residents, the second homeowners, businesses, and the visitors. I recognize this has been a very long process. The noise ordinance before you today still needs clarification. I certainly appreciate that the ordinance would have a trial period of 6 months. While we would like a higher dB where we operate with Wild Dunes, we're willing to operate under the proposed 70 dB decibel that is proposed in this ordinance. I would like to make a very strong clarification for myself, for my owners, and for the company that I represent is that we have never once proposed a noise ordinance for the entirety of Wild Dunes Resort, not once. And how that got out into the public domain, that we authorized and were proponents and lobbying all of you for a 75 dB for the whole PDD, is just a false statement. And I'm going to ignore the people that are talking in the audience. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'm happy to further discuss the noise ordinance and help us move it along if possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
All right, next on the agenda is the approval of previous meetings minutes. We have the regular city council meeting from April 23rd, special city council meeting May 14th, special city council workshop May 14th, and we also have the committee meetings, meeting minutes attached. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any change? All right, special presentations, we have none. Old business, we have a number of updates, and Desiree, why don't you give us a walkthrough on these, if you don't mind?
So first, coyote management, as we reported at the workshop last couple weeks ago, there are traps deployed in suspected den areas. Right now, they're at 3,600 and the 3,900 block of Palm. The city's trapping efforts did yield the trapping of one coyote the week of May 13th. So we are continuing on those efforts, including public education and deploying signs along beach access paths to alert folks that are walking with their dogs or without their dogs that coyotes may be in the area. Want me to keep going?
Yeah, are there any questions or
No.
comments? No, keep going, yeah.
All right, on the shoal management project, the permit application was submitted to OCRM in April, early April. This project is requesting permission from the regulatory agencies for the city to harvest sand from the incoming shoal that is off of Grand Pavilion, that area along Wild Dunes, and also allow the city to harvest sand from accretional areas between 44th and 53rd. The first harvest area along the shoal would be prioritized, but the city is seeking permission to allow the flexibility in the event while the permit is valid, which is 5 years. If conditions arise that would require us to use some of the surplus sand from that area, to be permitted to do so. That permit is not yet on public comment. The city hosted a public meeting last week at the Recreation Center where Stephen walked through an entire presentation about the scope of this project and what any potential impacts it might be and what the goal of the project is. It was, the meeting was very well attended. We had about 60 to 70 people attend, lots of good questions, and that video is available on the website. As soon as the permit application is up for public comment, I will let you all know.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Is part of the shoal management permit that we've applied, is a trucking in of new sand a part of that element, or would that be a separate? I'm not a big fan of taking from one section and adding to another. I've been in a lot of beach meetings now through that ad hoc committee, and I understand that Stephen's preference, and really probably should be all of our preference, is to add new sand to the sandbox, so to speak, rather than just shuffle around what we might already have here. I don't really consider sand between 44th and 53rd excess. It's just what happens to be there. It's a long way to ask the question, but is there an element of trucking attached to that?
Not to this permit, not in this permit application. The priority would be using the sand from that offshore shoal that is attaching, so that's technically new sand into the system as a priority. But certainly.
Secondary to that, it would be the relocation?
Correct. And part of the process with the public comment, we've also been hosting just one-on-one meetings with different stakeholders, trying to get their thoughts and see how we can improve our permit application before we go out of public comment. And we've already discussed about some changes potentially to the permit application to make it a stronger permit. And that's something that we can certainly discuss with Stephen about potentially adding if there's value in that.
Thank you.
Blair? Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that at the public meeting, the city's coastal engineer actually said that for the part of the permit from 53rd Avenue to 44th Avenue, that if that was done, that it would move the high tide line back landward 50 to 100 feet. That's people's property. I mean, that's just a taking. And I mean, I just can't imagine the city getting behind that. You're actually taking people's property and then shipping it somewhere else on the island. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on that?
Well, I just have a question
Go ahead.
following up on that. The sand that you said that would be used is from the offshore shoal, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the beach, actual beach that's there now, that sand, the wet sand area would be untouched during this process?
Where specifically?
Where we're taking,
It's two different harvest sites. One
Okay.
is a shoal that's offshore.
Okay.
And the second one is the wet sand adjacent to.
okay, so I misunderstood that. All right, and that is not somebody's private property now, that is public beach that we're taking this from?
So the owners own to mean high tide, and the way that this permit is it has been presented is that the sand from that accretional area would be harvested below that line. So it is not within private property. I think the point that Councilmember Hahn is making is by harvesting sand temporarily, there'll be a shift in where the high tide line is.
Okay.
And I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's what he's referring to.
That's the issue.
During
Okay.
that meeting, I would encourage those that have not watched it to do so. There was a lot of information presented about the last two times that the city has done this same project in 2012 and 2014, and showing all of the images of how that sand, even placed north of that area, immediately starts shifting back to that potential recycle area. But that's not the city is seeking for a permit that would give us another tool to address in the future between now and the time when we are able to execute a large-scale offshore dredging project like we did in 2018, to give us flexibility of options to address critical erosional areas. It could be that the harvesting sand from the incoming shoal that's offshore currently, it's about 350 feet offshore, will be enough to address the erosional areas between now and when we can execute a larger scale project. And even if it's permitted, doesn't mean that the city has to act on it. Only if it's necessary and there's no more sand in the incoming shoal is when the city may consider that. But again, that would be a lot of conversation with council if that's a project that we want to pursue. If conditions warranted, it would be an option that the city could do. Not because it is permitted or requested in a permit application means that the city would be doing that.
Thank you.
Desiree, what's the timing of the, I guess there are going to be some amendments or changes and updates, and then that will be resubmitted and distributed to or posted publicly or distributed to council?
Yeah, so the OCRM will put the permit application in public comment. They notify everybody in the area that would be impacted. And it would be a 30-day public comment period. Then all of those comments are reviewed by the regulatory agencies before they issue a permit approval, if
Do
you
we
will.
have a
to city.
timeline on when we think that's going to happen, or
No,
we don't know?
we don't know.
Okay.
Our hope and our goal is for this project to be ready for construction at the end of this year, early next year, at least the harvesting from the incoming shoal.
So that permit would have to go through that entire process?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is the beneficial use project.
So the beneficial use project, the Army Corps of Engineers continues to work through with the contractor safety, environmental, and quality control plans, which they're required to have fully approved before work starts. What we know so far is that the contract has been executed, the notice to proceed has been issued. However, we have not been provided with a start date yet from the Army Corps of Engineers.
Now, I guess there was some news about, we were all thinking that the barge
Yes.
and the equipment out there was related to our project, but apparently it may not be. Is that correct?
Correct. We've learned that equipment that's out there, it may be associated, it has to be associated with a private project that is not the Army Corps of Engineers. The contractor's equipment is in Georgetown. So the project, their equipment is not yet on site, as we thought.
All right. Do we have any idea, is that going to push us out a month, another 2 months, or we have no idea at this point?
We have no idea. We have asked, and all we were told by the Army Corps of Engineers is very soon. But we're not in control of the contract or the schedule or anything like that. So it's very, very difficult, and believe me, I've tried.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'd heard all spring pretty firm that it was going to be the end of May. Mm-hmm. When did it change?
So we had a meeting with them, I think it was April 10th, and at that time, they had indicated that the notice to proceed was going to be issued that day or the day after. A few weeks later, we learned that the notice to proceed had not been issued, and it was going to be issued May 1st. We do know that that's been confirmed. There's just, it's a federal project. They're very complicated. All Ts need to be crossed and Is dotted, and it's just been, I think we first started talking about this project with a construction date of January.
Yeah.
So I think now we're probably looking at June and July, and that's me speculating. Again, we haven't been told a date yet. We were, the last, I think, to Councilmember Ward's point, the last notice we had received was mid to late May, the start, but for 2 days off, 3 days off of May, and they haven't started yet. But again, we continue to ask. Stephen, has a lot of conversations with the contractor. As soon as we know anything else, we will share that with you all in the community.
All right, thank you. Anything else? All right, CARTA update.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, CARTA. Jimmy, do you want to give an update? I certainly want to, we had a press conference last week. Councilmember Ward represented the city. Well,
Yeah, you can go ahead, and I might add a sentence
okay,
to it
all right.
again,
You
maybe
can add
not.
some color. The seasonal shuttle service has started this weekend on Saturday. It'll run every Saturday, Sunday, and holidays every hour from 9:30 to 5:30. It is free. The city continues to support financially this endeavor along with the town of Mount Pleasant. Each community pays between $8,000 and $10,000, so the service is free for users. The first stop is at Town Center, so folks can park there, shop, get on a bus, and be dropped at 14th and Ocean here next to the county park. We saw a 92% increase in ridership in 2023 compared to 2022. So we are hopeful that this season will see an even more increase. The more people we use it, the less cars we see on the road heading to Alapalm. So it's an initiative we're very proud of and excited about.
Yeah, this is the third year, and we've had a lot of cooperation from Carter and the town of Mount Pleasant, and it was a very nice press conference we had last Friday to kick it off. So we're hoping for continued success and a lot more numbers than we had last year.
Great. Okay, and last, I think, is the budget update and from legislative perspective on funding.
Yes, just as a reminder, the city requested 4 budget allocations to the state budget in FY25. We requested $1.5 million for stormwater improvements, $2.5 towards beach nourishment, $250,000 for the project at the IOP County Park for improving emergency access to the beach, and $1 million for improvements to our beach access paths, including the installation of ADA boardwalks. The last update we received from our lobbyists in Columbia showed that the House budget, the version of the House that passed, included $1.25 million for stormwater improvements and $1 million in the Senate version for beach nourishment. So what happens now is the budget is going to be at a conference committee. That means 3 members of the House and 3 members of the Senate will reconvene and hopefully agree on a version of the budget for approval. Each chamber will vote on it, and then it'll go to the governor for his signature. At that point, the governor could veto certain projects. We are hopeful that they won't veto our two projects that made it in. And they should be meeting first week of June. I mean, they have to have a budget approved by the end of June, just like we do. So we should know more in the next week or two about the success of those two allocations that made it in the latest version of the budget.
Great, thank you. Questions? All right, next item on the agenda is consideration of memorandum of understanding for use of the shared lot of the Isle of Palms Marina during the 2024 season. And the agreement's in the packet. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I'll second. Discussion or give us
Sure.
an overview?
We, just as a reminder from our conversation at the workshop, this would be a 6-month, well, is it 6 months? Or just through the end of, through the end of the season?
September.
Yeah, through.
October 1st.
October 1st, thank you. I'm confusing it with a different 6-month, the noise ordinance, which is 6 months. So this essentially restructures the shared lot and moving the trailer parking spaces from where they are in the middle of the lot, lining them similar to the trailer parking spaces on the opposite side of the boat ramp that is under control of the marina operator. Would then split the amount of car spaces that remain in the shared lot. The restaurant would have exclusive use of 20. The city would keep the 16 exclusive resident parking spaces that are currently there now. Some of them are covered partly and due to the construction that we have going on at the public dock and the ditch. And then the remaining spaces would be shared between the restaurant and the city. The agreement that it's in your packet, we've shared it with the restaurant folks. It was drafted by our real estate attorney, Brian Kitts, who drafted the restaurant lease. So it's in a version that would be recommended by legal for the city to approve.
Does the city stay in the same position as far as spaces for the public?
Yes,
Are there
sir.
any reduction in parking spaces for the public?
No reduction in parking spaces for the public, and this temporary MOU would establish that the trailer parking spaces that would be moved would be exclusive to Isle of Palms residents with a valid decal for their truck and trailer.
Same number?
So right now, there's about 11. Not all of them are very easy to access with a truck and trailer. So I think that the maneuverability around where those are now, it's challenging. Our measurements show that we can accommodate at least 10 in this new setup, but there are probably changes in the field, when we start laying down parking stops that could change.
And right now, as it is with it being trailer and car parking in the evenings, if someone leaves their car there, one car takes up a whole trailer, even though you can get two cars there, but one car takes up a whole trailer spot, so.
Correct.
And that happens fairly
Frequently.
often, so there's, in essence, 10, or maybe even less at this point than 10, a lot of
Correct.
days.
Will residents still park for free in that area?
Yes, ma'am. They park for free anywhere on the marina as long as their vehicle has a valid parking decal that's issued by the city.
And the Wild Dunes decals account for that also, I believe?
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
We talking about we're still on A? We haven't moved
Yes.
to the part we
No,
seem
we're
to be
still
kind of
gonna-
blending them together.
gonna vote
Okay.
on A.
I had some questions around the fees,
Oh,
but I'm
right.
happy to.
No, you're right. We haven't
Any
gotten there.
other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
I think I heard one nay. Okay. Motion passes. On to the next one, consideration of parking fees in the shared lot and along the new right-of-way parking along Marina entrance. And I think this is along 41st Avenue, is that correct, Desiree?
Yes, sir. And I included a sheet on page 43 that shows the area that we're talking about. If you all don't mind, we can split it and maybe first talk about the right-of-way parking between Waterway and the terminus of 41st Avenue. That is an area was included in the drainage plan, the drainage project of 41st, where that ditch is now covered, which provides us much more space to accommodate vehicles. Right now, that section of right-of-way is the only area, the only location in the city where trailers can park for more than an hour. They're prohibited island-wide for more than an hour. So there's a specific provision in the beach parking ordinance that allows that in that section. So if the city's goal is to make that area available for vehicles to park, not trailers, because trailers can only pretty much just park parallel versus vehicles that can head in and park. We think we can accommodate about 30 parking spaces, vehicle parking spaces along that new area, compared to about 3, maybe 4 parallel-only trailer parking spaces. Since we're making the accommodation of the parking for the trailer parking spaces on next to the shared lot, we think it would be we could maximize the area by allowing vehicles to park there. In order to encourage turnover, the thought that the committee had, and the Public Services and Facilities Committee, was to charge a daily fee, matching it to what the marina operator currently charges. So you're not creating a competition of people trying to park there first because it's cheaper. So kind of putting it across the board, a $10 flat fee for that area. We have discussed with our parking management vendor, and they are ready to include that in their plan for parking management that they currently do for us, and they would be patrolling and enforcing parking there. But if this is a permanent change that we would that the city wants to do, it would require making amendments to the code. And the MOU, which is what allows us to have dedicated trailer-only spaces on the north end of the boat ramp, it's temporary. I think that the thought would be to wait until that is done and see if there's any permanent changes before we change the code on the allowances for parking trailer spaces in that section of right-of-way. Does that kind of sort of make sense?
You answered my questions.
Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Just discussion,
Oh, wait,
Discussion.
Actually, I have a question with their.
just a couple of questions.
Oh, go ahead. Jimmy, go ahead.
What did you have?
So
You're
Desiree-
approving parking fees.
Yes.
Is what I'm understanding. Okay, I just want to
Yes.
make sure. Okay.
Jimmy, go ahead.
So it's for public parking, correct?
Yes, sir. So it would be open to the public. That section of road, it's owned by the city, not by SCDOT, so we don't need to get an encroachment permit from DOT or anything. It would just be the city making that determination. And the plan would be for residents, just like they can park anywhere at the marina with a valid decal, they will park for free. The same rule would apply to this section of right-of-way. If you have a decal, park there would be no fee.
So you think it's a plus of about 30 spaces for the public?
Roughly, yes.
Thank you.
Blair, go ahead.
Just to clarify, we are mirroring the fees that the marina is currently charging. So there will
Correct.
be no difference between the
Well,
marina.
Except for the first
marina,
hour, is that
yeah, the
right?
marina operator offers the first hour for free to accommodate traffic going to the store. We talked about that at the committee level to match that. It's just, it's hard for a contractor to do that, because you would have to assume that people still scan to pay immediately as, they're parking, even though they won't get charged. It just becomes very difficult. So we feel like that area will be used mostly for overflow parking for both operations. So I think the committee, we all felt comfortable just having a flat fee, which is very similar to the fee at Front Beach.
Yeah, it's consistent with the rest of the city parking.
Other than that, it is the same as.
Correct. The only change is that the city parking lots on Pavilion Drive, it's $10 a daily between Monday and Friday. Saturday and Sundays are $15 at the parking lot here. So we would just have a 10 flat at the marina. So it would be slightly different from that perspective.
Jan? No. Oh, Ashley, go ahead.
Overnight parking, is there
rule against like
I'm sorry?
people parking overnight?
Overnight parking.
So the signage will include overnight, no overnight parking, that would be our goal.
So they'll be towed, I guess, or?
People get really upset when you tow them,
I
so
mean,
it's
yeah.
always an option that we
I just
have.
don't know what's going on.
Our parking operator have had some experience using the barnacle, which is just, it stays in place, people pay the penalty, and their vehicle is accessible to them. So that would be what we would intend to use for any nuisance parking.
Do you have anything?
What's a barnacle?
So
I mean, I know what a barnacle is, but what is it in the parking realm?
Good that you don't know.
It's good to, yeah, that's right. It's a device that gets stuck in the window, on the
Nice.
window of the car, so you can't really drive with it on.
okay.
And you call a number, put a code after you pay, and you can take it off, yourself. But you'd have to deposit it in an area where they keep it on site.
Good to know.
It's much less aggressive, I guess, than towing, but still does the job.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
But, so now we will have a ordinance, that there will have to be an ordinance change, is that?
Yes, my suggestion is, at the end of this season, the city is going through a review of all of our parking ordinances with our new contractor. We've already identified a few things in the code that may need a little bit of clarification that would make it a lot easier for them. Rather than doing it piecemeal, we can all have that conversation in September and bring it all to council at the same time.
Clean it all up.
Yes.
All right. Next on the agenda, consideration of Charleston County CTC program funding requests for FY '25.
So the three projects that we are proposing for the city to submit as part of our request for CTC funding include the installation of crosswalks and pedestrian sidewalk on the land side of Palm Boulevard between Breach Inlet and 10th. The first phase would include a sidewalk to 2nd Avenue and a crosswalk right at 2nd Avenue, where very close to the Exchange Club is. We're requesting funds for that project. This is the second year we request a specific project. The second request would include traffic calming measures on Palm Boulevard and the installation of flashing light beacons. I included a picture of it in the packet. It's solar powered and only turns on when there is a pedestrian that needs to cross. It's not constantly flashing what, some of the versions we had seen in the past was flashing all the time, and that became annoying to the adjacent neighbors. This new technology would solve for that. So that would be the second project. They're about $15,000 a piece for each crosswalk.
How many are we proposing?
So it would be on all the crosswalks between 21st and 41st.
All of them? Oh.
Yes. And then the third project is for our second, the fourth drainage project in our master plan, which we talked about phase 4 drainage, Palm Boulevard, 38th and 41st. It's right in the main artery, our main artery of the island, and we have been successful getting funds from CTC for drainage projects that gets water off the road. So we would be including that project as part of our third request.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Last item in new business, approval of purchase of two tide valves for 27th Avenue and Driftwood Lane in the amount of $20,186, and these are all budgeted, and we've got drainage contingency to cover it as well.
That's right.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Board and commission reports are all in the packet. Any questions, comments? Can go on. Item number 8, ordinances, resolutions, and petitions. We have second reading, none. First reading, ordinance 2401, ordinance to temporarily repeal and replace section 9-2.5, noise from July 21st, 24 through December 24. Motion to approve by title only.
Motion to approve. By title only.
Second? All right, take a vote. Why don't we have a roll call vote on this
Who
one?
seconded it?
Who
You
seconded?
seconded
I
it?
thought I seconded it.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure if you were asking
No,
for
I
one. or
didn't.
you were saying-
I just seconded
Okay. Gotcha. You want a roll call vote?
Yeah, why don't we take a roll call vote on this?
Councilmember Campson? Nay. Councilmember Anderson?
Yes for first reading.
Councilmember Ward?
Nay.
Councilmember Myers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hahn?
Nay.
Councilmember Carroll?
Nay.
Councilmember Pierce?
Aye.
Councilmember Bogosian?
Aye.
It's a tie.
So it's a
Failed.
tie vote, so it fails.
Motion fails. Okay, on to the next item, ordinance 2024-5, an ordinance to amend section 5.4.12 and 5.413 and establish stormwater management requirements for the new construction on SR1, SR2, and SR3 to allow properties to be elevated up to 7 feet 4 inches in elevation with the approval of a plan certifying that the post-construction stormwater pattern will result in the same or less runoff than pre-construction stormwater patterns. Motion to approve by title and discuss.
Motion to approve by title only.
I'll second it.
All right.
So this ordinance, just for the record, it
We have to
does,
suspend the rules if you're going to discuss.
I think his
If we're
motion
okay,
included
yeah, but-
discuss.
If anybody wanted to discuss it, no.
I want to have some.
I just was going to say that it requires a public hearing and that'll be scheduled in June.
All right, well, we can just go by title only here tonight.
Okay.
Okay. So are we having a discussion?
You have to have a motion if you want to have a discussion, to suspend the rules
make
of
a
order.
motion. You want to discuss?
I have a statement I'd like to make.
Okay.
You
We
can't,
have-
Discussion?
it's not by title only unless you.
I would like to make a
suspend the
motion
rules.
to approve by title only and discuss.
You have to suspend the rules of
I
order,
know, we're suspending the rules. We'll suspend the rules of
so we
order.
have to vote on that.
That's why we need to.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules of order in order to discuss the first
Second
reading
that.
of number 2.
A second.
You got a second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Jan?
Okay. I have a real problem with the way that we do drainage on the island because it does, a lot of raising the elevation of lots now causes runoff from those lots. The only thing that our ordinance tries to control is additional runoff after a lot is raised. It does not work to solve that problem, and it thinks it doesn't make it worse, but I think this is going to make runoff from lots onto our streets that already flood to become worse. If we have a lot that can raise its elevation more than a foot, more than its neighbors, then you're practically building a seawall around that piece of property. So I think this is a very bad idea. End of statement.
Douglas, would you mind helping us out here on this? We had quite a bit of discussion, I think, at the committee
Yeah, so-
level. If
and
for
I
maybe
think-
some clarification and sizing of the issue and the, yeah.
I think that Jan's point is specific, and I would say that there's a lot of changes happening with this ordinance, and one of them, which I would consider a fairly minor change, is that our existing code blanketly says you cannot elevate more than 1 foot above the road. Generally, that's not a problem, and it doesn't cause issue with development of houses or for owners. Where it does create problems is those owners that are really, where their adjacent road is really, really low. If you think about roads that get a high tide comes over a foot into that road, if you only allow that owner adjacent to it to build up a foot, you're allowing a lot to be built knowing that during a high tide, that entire property will be overwhelmed by the tidal water. So the Planning Commission, and this came as a recommendation from Davis and Floyd specifically, looked at that and did not think it was wise to force people to build at an elevation that would be below a king tide elevation. Relatively few of these. We did have a recent subdivision in the Forest Trail area that all of those lots were held to this standard. So it kind of brought itself to light pretty quickly. But there are relatively few properties that this would impact, and there are those that have a road less than 6.4, so they can now build up to 7.4 at their max, which is really, again, kind of just above the high tide. Bunch of other changes there I'd be happy to go into, but sounds like that's the one of main concern to Councilman Anderson.
Any other comments?
Just one last comment, and that is, even if you put a berm collecting all of the water on top of the property, you still have a driveway that would always slope towards the street, and runoff could possibly come right through the driveway down onto the street. So I look at changes in zoning as ways to improve our community. If it's a problem that's there now and it only maintains the status quo for that problem, I don't see it as a benefit. But thank you.
This is a really small area. There's a very few people that are affected by this. And this is I know it's nice to say that we don't want to have streets used as drainage, but that's the situation that we have in a lot of places. And until we're going to actually, fix the infrastructure, just saying that we can't do this because we don't want, my house has no drainage. The only drainage that we have is the street. So I don't know where else we'd like for me to put, for the water to go, but it's going to go downhill. I don't like the idea of raising up lots all over the place either. I think it could be, but this has the inclusion that the engineer has to say that it's not going to adversely affect the neighbors. And I believe that they do have ditches in the back, I think.
That neighborhood does.
And the one I'm thinking of.
Yes, it does.
So they do actually have drainage.
And I guess I would add that other than the kind of what I would call minor detail of elevating super low lots or lots adjacent to super low roads, this is the first time that the city will ever require that you actually hold stormwater onto your property. That's currently not in our ordinance, so that's seen as a big improvement. There is no current standard just says an engineer or landscape architect just has to say this is not going to adversely impact neighbors. The new code has that language, plus it requires that it mimic or reduce stormwater quantity and direction. So it's adding a lot more detail to what the engineers have to do when they develop these stormwater plans. And again, it's for the first time ever requiring people to actually hold a portion of their stormwater on their property, which I think should benefit the community when.
Does it require that the lot be graded so it drains towards a drainage ditch if it's possible? Do we have anything like that in there? Rather than towards the street?
But yeah, the issue would be that, like the example given, that there are a lot of properties that don't have an adjacent ditch. If they have an adjacent ditch, every one of these stormwater plans automatically puts it towards that ditch. There wouldn't be I don't think there'd be a designer that would direct it elsewhere when there's infrastructure adjacent. So that just has kind of always happened. If there's a ditch, it gets put into that ditch.
Okay, so just buyer beware that if you do this, your street floods, you're going to be stranded because we haven't improved that area by allowing this to happen. So that's where I'm coming from. We get streets flooding now, and we're stranded because in big storms, not only do we have the rainfall, but we have runoff from the homes along the streets. That's all. Sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Next item, resolutions and proclamations. Resolution for council participation in the state insurance benefits program. I think the items are attached in the packet.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, any executive session required?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.